And then it happened. He got sick again. I thought, right, that's how our life is going to be for the rest of our lives. After that, I was sort of always on guard, using my thinking capacity and trying to keep one step ahead of him to stop him from doing things that would cause irreparable harm. My alarm has worked, but it's draining my strength.
The untold story of living with someone with bipolar disorder. The content of this video is intended to be educational, and the general guidance should not substitute advice provided by a physician or qualified health professional. This video is simply meant to contribute to the conversation surrounding mental health and caregiving, and challenge the stigma around bipolar disorder. Someone is diagnosed with bipolar disorder. It's not uncommon for a close family member or friend to take on an informal caregiver role. At times, this role can be difficult and may feel like a large burden. However, research has indicated that this perceived burden can actually be mitigated through the introduction of something called psychoeducation. Psychoeducation involves learning about bipolar disorder, its symptoms, its treatment, and proper management options. Bipolar disorder is a brain condition that causes extreme fluctuation in the person's mood, energy, and ability to function. These individuals have strong emotional states that consist of highs and/or lows that last for days or even weeks. There are 4 types of bipolar disorders, which include bipolar 1, bipolar 2, cyclothymic disorder, and bipolar disorder not otherwise specified. Each type exhibits a different mix of bipolar symptoms and episodes, which have variable effects on the person's functioning and well-being. In order to best help your loved one, it's important for you to know the 4 types of bipolar episodes. These include manic, hypomanic, major depressive, and mixed episodes, and they each have their own different signs and symptoms. Manic episodes.
A lot of times when she's manic, she'll just take off, period. Take the car and go, and then I worry about her. She's just racing. I had to watch his bank statements when he's high. He has many spend-ups. When she's manic, she's totally a different person. She's very selfish, only thinking of herself. Her mind is racing. When she's manic, you can't really reason with her. She cannot see the right thing.
During a manic episode, a person feels intense euphoria or highs, while often also being irritable. Signs of this type of episode include fast speech, racing thoughts, less sleep paired with high energy, being easily distracted, having an inflated sense of one's own importance, and increased recklessness. Hypomanic episodes.
At one time, my wife had 3 jobs, but that could have been the mania. Our marriage is a lot different than it would have been without the illness. Even when she's well, I'm vigilant for signs of illness all the time.
Hypomanic episodes include some of the seemingly more positive aspects of mania, such as increased productivity and the sense of euphoria, without some of the more outwardly negative aspects such as recklessness and irritability, those negative aspects that tend to impede an individual's daily functioning. This milder episode can mislead people into thinking they can stop their medication. However, this isn't the case because hypomania is only temporary, and it can quickly escalate into full-blown mania or even be followed by a depressive episode. Major depressive episodes.
He became remote and different, answered in words of 1 syllable. His voice was completely dead, and his body language was completely flat. He lay in bed most of the time. I felt as though I was on the outside of something incomprehensible and unreal.
Someone in a major depressive episode experiences the hallmark symptoms of depression for 2 weeks or longer, and these include feeling down, losing interest in things they like, things that typically brought them joy. Other symptoms include poor sleep or oversleeping, poor appetite or overeating, difficulties concentrating, feeling worthless, experiencing lower self-esteem, and suicidal thoughts. When an individual presents with 4 or more of these symptoms, they are said to be in a major depressive episode. Mixed episodes.
Depending on what mood she's in, if she's in the manic mood or the depressive mood, let's just say her personality is altered. It's not the same person.
When both mania and depression are present and cycle throughout the day, the individual is in a mixed episode. Caregivers must be particularly wary of this type of episode because the combination of depression with the high energy from the mania puts patients at a higher risk of committing suicide. In order to ensure we have a holistic understanding of the issue, we decided to consult Dr. Roger McIntyre. He's a professor of psychiatry and pharmacology at the University of Toronto. He's also the head of the Mood Disorder Psychopharmacology Unit at the University Health Network in Toronto. He's published more than 400 articles and manuscripts on mood disorders, including bipolar disorder. How can friends and family help with managing bipolar disorder?
The first thing is that when I'm asked by families and friends how can they be supportive, it begins with education, more education, and more education, because I think we need to have good literacy on the illness and its treatment. And I think it's difficult to support someone if you don't have sufficient knowledge of what they're going through and or sufficient understanding of what the treatments are. So you need to be equipped and fortified with up-to-date knowledge. Secondly is that I encourage people to go to a group that is dedicated to families and people affected by bipolar disorder. It's called the DBSA, so www.dbsalliance.org. The Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance is online, based in the US, but it's international. And it's an opportunity to meet other families, people who live with bipolar. What do they find to be more effective to support people? What do they find didn't maybe work as well? And learn about when the timing is right, striking when the iron is cold, as they say.
How can friends and family help during a depressive state?
The key thing is during a depression, one needs to be aware of the fact that many people with depression as part of bipolar do experience thoughts of suicide. And I think there needs to be a recognition of that. And if, in fact, the seriousness of that escalates, I think that they should really encourage the person who's living with the condition to seek out healthcare services immediately, whether it's their local physician they see, or in many cases going to the local emergency. And sometimes if the person's denying or not wanting to seek out healthcare and there's serious concerns raised, I think we need to also in many cases depend on family and friends to get that person to a local emergency.
As a caregiver, it is essential for you to encourage the individual to take their medication in order to help them manage their episodic symptoms. However, at the same time, it's important for you not to get overly involved, as this can increase the caregiver burden and may not be what's best for the individual themselves either.
Cautionary note is families and friends are not the patient's doctor, not the person's doctor, and they're not the person's manager, typically. And we always need to really respect the boundaries and the autonomy of the person who lives with the condition. But that being said, we certainly would welcome mentorship and advocacy and support. I've treated tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of people who are bipolar, and most do real well. And they're, the people you would know, they're well known in Canadian and American society. They're leaders and in many different ecosystems and spaces.
Accepting the life situation was difficult. It happened gradually. I got help from a therapist, managed to put things into perspective, and reestablish my belief in myself. I saw that my husband was growing and that our life became more stabilized. We have undoubtedly both grown from the experience.